A Chinese fighter jet is attempting something unbelievable, landing on the deck of a U.S. aircraft carrier. The crew scrambles, alarms blare, and the world holds its breath. Given the current tensions between the U.S. and China, this is not inconceivable. It could also be a tactic by China. But what would happen in such a situation? How would the U.S. respond? And what would be the far-reaching consequences of such a brazen act? While the idea of a Chinese jet fighter attempting to land on a U.S. aircraft carrier may seem far-fetched, it's not entirely impossible. Such an action could be motivated by various factors, including a pilot's desire to defect, a navigational error, or even a deliberate provocation aimed at testing U.S. resolve and response capabilities. In the event of an unauthorized landing attempt, the U.S. aircraft carrier crew would immediately spring into action. The ship's air traffic controllers would try to communicate with the approaching aircraft, demanding that it identify itself and state its intentions. If the aircraft fails to respond or continues on its course, the carrier's combat air patrol, consisting of armed fighter jets, would be scrambled to intercept and escort the intruder away from the ship. Simultaneously, the carrier's command center would initiate emergency protocols, alerting nearby U.S. naval assets and shore-based command centers of the unfolding situation. The U.S. military would likely attempt to establish communication with Chinese authorities to clarify the situation and prevent any misunderstandings that could lead to an escalation of tensions. The United States boasts an impressive fleet of aircraft carriers, each a floating city of immense power and strategic importance. The crew, numbering in the thousands, is highly trained and prepared to respond to any threat, whether it comes from the air, sea, or land. China has made significant strides in developing its military aviation capabilities in recent years. The country's arsenal includes a variety of jet fighters, ranging from the domestically produced J-10 and J-11 to the more advanced J-16 and J-20 stealth fighters. These aircraft are designed to compete with their Western counterparts, such as the U.S. F-15, F-16, and F-35. While Chinese jet fighters have demonstrated impressive capabilities, they're not without limitations. What do you think would be the best way for the U.S. to respond to such a scenario? Should they take a hardline stance or seek to de-escalate the situation through diplomacy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Historical precedents and comparisons. While the scenario of a Chinese jet fighter landing on a U.S. aircraft is unprecedented, there have been similar incidents in the past that offer valuable lessons and insights. One such incident occurred in 1988 when a Soviet Mi-8 helicopter landed aboard the USS Yorktown, a decommissioned U.S. Navy aircraft carrier that was anchored in the Black Sea as part of a goodwill visit to the Soviet Union. The incident, which was later revealed to be a misunderstanding, caused a brief diplomatic spat between the two superpowers. However, the situation was quickly diffused through open communication and a shared desire to avoid escalation. This event highlights the importance of maintaining clear and reliable channels of communication between rival militaries, even in the face of provocative actions. Another relevant comparison can be drawn from the 2001 Hainan Island incident, in which a U.S. EP-3 surveillance plane collided with a Chinese J-8 fighter jet over the South China Sea. The damaged U.S. plane made an emergency landing on China's Hainan Island, leading to a tense 11-day standoff between the two nations. The incident strained U.S.-China relations and highlighted the risks of operating in close proximity to one another's military assets. The unauthorized landing of a Chinese fighter jet on a U.S. aircraft carrier would have far-reaching consequences, both diplomatically and militarily. Such an action would be viewed as a serious breach of international norms and a direct challenge to U.S. sovereignty. The diplomatic fallout could be severe, with the U.S. government demanding an immediate explanation and apology from Beijing. At this point, I'd like to take a minute to invite you to join our channel as a member, which will not only help us continue producing these fantastic videos about the U.S. Navy, but will also serve as a tribute to all the veterans who tune in to our videos. Head on over to the link in the description or simply visit our channel page and select Join. Thanks so much, and let's get back to the topic. The attempted landing of a Chinese fighter jet on a U.S. aircraft carrier would not only have implications for the U.S. and China, but also for their regional allies and partners. Countries in the Asia-Pacific region, such as Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines, have deep security ties with the U.S. and rely on the U.S. military presence to maintain stability and deter potential aggression. In the event of a crisis, these allies and partners would likely be called upon to support U.S. efforts to manage the situation and prevent escalation. This could involve providing diplomatic backing, sharing intelligence, or even contributing military assets to a coordinated response. The willingness and the ability of these countries to stand with the U.S. would be a key factor in shaping the regional balance of power and deterring further provocations. At the same time, an incident like this could also put pressure on U.S. allies and partners to choose sides or clarify their positions. In some countries, particularly those with close economic ties to China, may be reluctant to take actions that could be seen as provocative or confrontational. This could create tensions within regional alliances and partnerships, as well as between the U.S. and its allies. The role of international law and norms. The scenario of a Chinese fighter attempting to land on a U.S. carrier also raises important questions about the role of international law and norms in governing military activities and preventing conflict. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, which sets out the legal framework for the use of the world's oceans, provides some guidance on the rights and responsibilities of states in international waters. Under UNCLOS, warships and military aircraft have the right to freedom of navigation and overflight in international waters, subject to certain limitations. However, they are also required to operate with due regard for the rights and safety of others and to refrain from any threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. In the event of a Chinese jet fighter attempting to land on a U.S. aircraft carrier without permission, the U.S. would have a strong legal case that China had violated these principles. The unauthorized landing of a military aircraft on another country's warship would be a clear infringement of U.S. sovereignty and a threat to the safety of the carrier's crew. Organizations like the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and the East Asia Summit, or EAS, provide forums for regional countries to engage in dialogue, build trust, and develop common approaches to security challenges. The U.S. and China can also engage in bilateral dialogues, such as the U.S.-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue, to discuss issues of mutual concern and explore ways to reduce the risk of misunderstanding and miscalculation. The potential for escalation and conflict. Perhaps the most significant concern raised by the scenario of a Chinese jet landing on a U.S. carrier is the potential for escalation and conflict. Even if the initial incident is managed successfully, the lingering tensions and mistrust it creates could set the stage for future crises and confrontations. In the immediate aftermath of the incident, both the U.S. and China would likely engage in a period of intense diplomatic activity, seeking to shape the narrative and rally support for their respective positions. The U.S. would almost certainly demand an apology and assurances from China that such an incident would not be repeated, while China might try to downplay the significance of the event or even claim that the U.S. had provoked the confrontation. If these initial efforts at diplomacy fail to resolve the underlying issues, there is a risk that tensions could continue to escalate. The U.S. might feel compelled to take additional measures to demonstrate its resolve and deter further provocations, such as increasing its military presence in the region or conducting more aggressive freedom of navigation operations. A miscalculation or overreaction by either side could quickly spiral out of control, drawing in other countries and destabilizing the entire region. The role of intelligence and surveillance. In the event of a Chinese fighter jet attempting to land on a U.S. carrier, the role of intelligence and surveillance would be crucial. Both the US and China employ a wide range of assets, including satellites, drones, and reconnaissance aircraft, to monitor each other's military activities and gather valuable information. Prior to the incident, US intelligence agencies would likely be tasked with assessing the intentions and capabilities of the Chinese military. This could involve analyzing patterns of activity, intercepting communications, and tracking the movement of key assets such as aircraft and ships. By building a comprehensive picture of Chinese military postures and readiness, US decision-makers would be better equipped to anticipate and respond to potential provocations. Similarly, Chinese intelligence would be closely monitoring the US naval operations, particularly the deployment of aircraft carriers in sensitive regions like the South China Sea. They would be interested in gathering information on the carrier's defenses, flight operations, and overall readiness. This intelligence could be used to identify potential vulnerabilities and inform Chinese military planning. In the immediate aftermath after the incident, both sides would likely rely on their intelligence assets to gather additional information and assess the situation. This could include intercepting communications between the Chinese pilot and their command center, analyzing radar and satellite imagery, and monitoring social media and other open-source platforms for any relevant chatter or insights. The importance of training and readiness. The ability of the US aircraft carrier crew to respond effectively to a Chinese fighter jet attempting to land on their vessel would depend in a large part on their level of training and readiness. US personnel undergo rigorous instruction and participate in frequent drills and exercises to prepare for a wide range of contingencies, including unauthorized incursions and potential hostile acts. Carrier flight operations are particularly complex and demanding, requiring close coordination between air traffic controllers, flight deck crews, and pilots. In the event of an unauthorized landing attempt, these teams would need to work seamlessly together to assess the situation, communicate with the intruding aircraft, and take appropriate defensive measures. Regular training exercises, both within the Navy and with Allied forces, help to hone these skills and ensure that personnel are prepared to respond quickly and effectively in a crisis. These exercises often simulate real-world scenarios, such as intercepting hostile aircraft or defending against missile attacks, allowing crews to practice their procedures and identify areas of improvement. The future and confidence-building measures. As the world becomes increasingly multipolar and the balance of power shifts, the importance of maintaining open communication channels and engaging in diplomacy cannot be overstated. The US and China, as the world's two largest economies and military powers, have a special responsibility to manage their differences and work towards common goals, such as combating climate change, promoting global health, and maintaining regional stability. In the context of naval operations, this means establishing clear rules of engagement, regularly exchanging information on planned activities, and developing mechanisms for de-escalating tensions in the event of a crisis. It also requires a commitment to transparency, with both sides providing advance notice of major exercises and deployments to avoid misunderstandings and unintended confrontations. Looking ahead, the US-China relationship will likely continue to be characterized by a mix of cooperation and competition. While the two nations may have divergent interests and values, they also share a common stake in global peace and prosperity. By focusing on areas of mutual concern and working to build trust and understanding, the US and China can chart a course towards a more stable and secure future. As we contemplate this scenario, it's essential to remember the human dimension of such events. The men and women who serve aboard US carriers and fly Chinese jet fighters are not faceless adversaries, but individuals with their own hopes, fears, and aspirations. By striving to understand one another's perspectives and working towards common goals, we can build a future in which the risk of misunderstanding and conflict is minimized and the benefits of cooperation are maximized. What other potential scenarios do you think could arise between the US and Chinese military? How can both nations work to prevent such incidents from occurring, and what steps should be taken to manage them if they do? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. If you enjoy what you saw and learned something new today, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content about the U.S. Navy. We appreciate your support and hope to see you again soon. Be sure to hit the bell icon so you can tune in to our next video right on time.